Hey, y'all.
And here we are.
Yeah.
We saw Dune.
Finally.
Yeah.
I feel like we're the last people to have seen it. Well, we didn't want to go. I mean, we didn't really have time, and then we didn't really want to go on the weekend because I thought it'd be too crowded.
We couldn't get a good seat.
And I mean, I prefer to see movies in a mostly empty movie theater.
Yeah, in a Dolby theater, dead center.
Yeah,
like right behind.
I don't want a bunch of other motherfuckers in there chewing popcorn and whatnot
in
my ears.
Right behind the damn handicap seats.
Yeah.
Right to center.
So you can put your feet up
D10
on the...
or D9. Right?
Yeah, in the Dolby theater.
Yeah, in the Dolby theater. But I've been waiting years to see this. I'm a big fan of the original. Read the book when I was in high school. I read that book a couple of times when I was in high school. Liked it. I didn't read Dune Messiah or the other ones though for some reason. I just never got around to it. Other books to read, I guess. But I wasn't disappointed. This fucking movie was epic.
Man, it was breathtaking.
Yeah, it was epic. And I've heard some guys that, I agree with a lot, usually the guys off of Midnight Edge, some of our listeners here, but can, like Khan of Atzlan, and Khan really liked it. Some of the other guys said that, well, the acting, the lead character, the guy who played Paul was kind of wooden, and other people, there was like some gripes here and there, and I just have to disagree. I liked it. I couldn't see anything wrong with it. It's different from the first one. The Harkonnens aren't quite as over the top and fucking, malevolent.
And they're not as prominent.
They're not as prominent either. You never see Fade in it. You see Raban and you see the Baron, but you don't see Fade. They didn't make much out of what was his name? Mentat Piter.
Yeah.
He's in it. But they never tell you what his name is, and he's not a huge character. They don't even really explain much of what a Mentat is. And they show, what's his name? Thufir. Wasn't that his name? Thufir?
I think that's his name.
The Atreides Mentat. I think his name was Thufir Howard. I think is what his name was. He's in it. They do say his name, but his role isn't very great. It mostly focuses on Paul. Which there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a different way of telling the story.
It seemed, like I said, a lot more focused to me. And I mean, it's been way longer for me. It's like, I don't think I've read the book since I was a kid. Or, since I was like a teenager. But I remember the story just through watching the David Lynch ones, because you are really into like the Dune video games and stuff like that. So I'm pretty familiar with the overall story. But I like that. I mean, Denis Villeneuve, the dude that directed this, I mean, he did Arrival, obviously, and he did Blade Runner 2049. He's been wanting to do this since he was a teenager. He's like, it's always been my dream to like adapt Dune because nobody else had done it all that well. And it was like one of his favorite books when he was growing up. And I think that it was absolutely the right decision to focus more on Paul Atreides and his arc and stuff like that. And all this other stuff is going on. But I think it was good that they just sort of like concentrated on that and then had the other stuff going on, but it wasn't
as prominent in the story.
It didn't seem as, because I kind of feel like the David Lynch version, and I hate to call it that because I know David Lynch, like, it didn't come out the way he wanted.
No. And there's a bunch of edits of that, so but I do feel like that one was a little like scattered. It was kind of like all over the place, and you never really got a sense of how do all these things relate to one another. And I never had that problem with this one. It's weird because the David Lynch one, like I said, against his wishes, had a lot of that kind of narration and exposition and stuff like that. And yet still it was way harder to follow. This one had almost no exposition and almost no voiceovers or anything like that, and it was way easier to follow. Interestingly, I like the original also, and I like some of the edits. Like, there's a custom edit out there. I think it was called Sand Rider or Worm Rider edit that I saw, and it was a mixture of the regular television release. The television release was real long. There was a television release, a bunch of discarded shit that ended up on some special editions, and the theatrical release, all woven together into a pretty damn good narrative. It even had I think it even had the epilogue that was originally in the what do you call it, in the television release, is in it. It's just when you're talking about the original
the theatrical release was it was good. It was just that it was kind of like watching a movie about the Old Testament. You're covering a lot of ground in a single. Imagine you're covering Moses, and you're covering, the Exodus, and you're covering fucking,
and
the
also,
Garden of Eden, and you're covering, because these are huge stories. You can't really encapsulate it in one movie.
And also, it's much like the Old Testament. It's kind of like stories that were written by different people over like
time.
Drastically different time periods, and don't necessarily have a through line or have that much to do with one another.
Narratives
They're just kind
woven together.
Right.
And the Dune series has a religious tone to it. Religion plays a big part in the book. And reading the books, it kind of feels religious in a way. Because it's supposed to. It was written by a dude who was a fucking sociologist or a biologist. I forgot what he was. What was he? I think he was, some kind of... Was he a cultural anthropologist? Is that what he was?
I don't know.
Frank Herbert he was into a bunch of science. So when he wrote these books, it was kind of like he's talking about artifacts from another civilization, So it had the Dune book had a sense of authenticity to it. There's something about the original movie kind of had that weird authenticity to it also, like watching a movie about Moses or some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that, When I say religion, Jenny comes around, I don't know if she understands what I'm talking about.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, because I'm not talking about necessarily like Jesus and shit. It's not what it's like. It's almost like something out of the Old Testament, like mythology that supposedly happened. And that's kind of the way this stuff always kind of felt to me. Something that supposedly happened a long time ago, even though they're talking about 20 years in the future, 20,000 years in the future.
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about. And sometimes they're kind of talking about it like in the past too at the same time, which is pretty weird, talking about things that haven't happened yet, like it was a long time ago. But the movie, I think this movie does hold up. I really liked Blade Runner 2. I'm gonna call shit 2049 is what it's called, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember numbers that well. I remember 1 and 2 real well, and 3, okay, but 2049, sometimes I'll forget that number, so I just call it Blade Runner 2. Fuck them, you know what I mean? I'm like that. I liked Blade Runner 2. This might be better. I think this is better than Blade Runner 2. Pretty sure it is. Even though I liked them both.
Yeah, it's hard to say. They're both really awesome.
They both had a very authentic feel to them. Some people... I've talked to some people that didn't like 2049. And they said, well, it is so different than the original. I don't like the original. And when some of the reasons why they didn't like that one kind of made me think that they didn't really know the story of Blade Runner too well. That they didn't know what the original story was. Because the story we got from Ridley Scott, the theatrical release, is all fucked up. It's missing a lot of what was supposed to be in there. And a lot of what was cut out, a lot of those ideas were used in 2049. Because there's a lot more going on than met the eye. And yes, fucking Deckard was a replicant. That was the whole meaning of that story. And the studio wanted that out of there. They wanted it to be kind of left ambiguous. Which, originally he was a replicant. And yeah, replicants evidently can have kids. That's some weird shit, man. But I think this might have been better. And it is pretty faithful to the book. I mean, some of the books is very vague, so it can be left open to interpretation. And like an ornithopter, it does flap its wings, but they never really say much about it. And the way way ornithopters are presented in this movie is plausible to the descriptions given in the book. Which is a flying dragonfly, a helicopter that flies like a dragonfly with dragonfly wings.
One of the things I liked the best about this movie was that Khan of Aslan just said Villeneuve knows how to do scope. Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And another thing I liked about this movie really felt like you were there. I mean, it was very immersive, and everything looked like it would work in the real world. Everything just looked like grounded. I really loved all the shots of just like everything being dusty and like the heat waves and all this stuff. It really like made you feel, and I like that it had this sort of, it didn't look like that super sharp CGI kind of stuff that a lot of fantasy movies have. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Where everything is like ultra HD.
Yeah.
It had this kind of like gauzy,
it has
dirty,
it had kind of a soft look.
yeah, and I think that really served it well because it really made you feel like this is a real place and this is a real world and these are real people. It didn't have that ultra sharp fantasy edge to it.
Well, another thing is that it gave you the impression that you were watching a film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was HD, but not so ultra HD. To, like I said, everything was sharp. It had a softer tones and rounded stuff, and it just, you know what I mean? Just felt kind of like a high class movie, like a film. You know what I mean? Didn't have that video game feel to it. It was good.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of fantasy movies have that nowadays, where everything has to be like super sharp and super colorful and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, depending on what you're doing.
The application matters.
Yeah, but I think when you're making something like Dune, that's like you said, almost kind of like an Old Testament type thing. I think it looks better when it's kind of like dusty and grungy and kind of soft focus.
Yeah.
I mean, it gave it a lot more gravitas.
Part of it looked like something out of ancient Egypt and stuff, you know, with the palm trees and the fucking buildings like they were cut out of damn sandstone and stuff, and people out in the desert, kind of a Middle Eastern feel, you know. And, you know, I've been to Egypt. I lived there for 6 months, you know, in the Army. And it does. That's what running around a desert kind of feels like, you know, on a desert patrol. That's what it feels like. Although that was a very extreme, you know what I mean? Fucking 600-mile-an-hour winds and shit. You know, not on this planet. But it was quite cool.
The sandworms looked amazing.
Yeah, they looked pretty good. I liked it. Everything about it, I could not. Nothing jumped out at me that was a problem. There was nothing that I was shown in here that blew it. And like, oh no, that didn't happen in the Dune universe, or no, that couldn't exist in the Dune universe.
There was nothing
Everything that they showed could exist in the Dune universe.
There was nothing that took you out of it either. It was completely. I mean, I think from the time that it started till the time that it ended, I was just kind of like, I was just completely like hypnotized by it the whole time, just watching, just completely immersed in it.
Yeah, and what's funny is that they don't explain anything, but you can kind of follow what's going on. If you didn't know anything about the Dune universe, you wouldn't notice I don't think you would notice that things weren't explained. Like, a bunch of shit happens, never once do they ever show any computer technology, but you don't really notice it. And if you didn't know the Dune universe, it probably wouldn't dawn on you that they never show a computer. And it's because this is taking place after something in this story called the Butlerian Jihad, which was a holy war against thinking machines and men that controlled machines and thinking machines. So in other words, it's like a jihad against big tech. And they wrote down in their new religions throughout the entire known universe and all the royal houses, no more computers. No more computers, no more AI. Which that gives a lot of damn technological problems when you're spacefaring. You have to use powers of the mind. So they're making mentats and golems and golas, which is fucking zombies. So there's a bunch of weird technology that they're using, you know. Reviving dead bodies, wiping their minds, re-educating them to make them into human computers called mentats. And every royal house had one. They're like a slave, I guess because you buy them, because they didn't have human rights, because they were the undead, basically. And that was not as threatening as a computer. And there was no computers in any of the damn machines. It's all, nothing that can be interpreted as AI. So you have to have all these mental powers, and that's what this spice is all about. You have to go to Dune to get spice. Spice gives you the damn psychic premonitions you need in order to navigate in through space by when you're making a wormhole, so you can travel without moving. So it's kind of like interstellar fucking LSD. And it also is kind of like steroids. It makes you stronger and it makes you live longer. So some of these people in this story are centuries old, 200, 300, 400 years old, but they don't look old. They just keep you running. So only real rich people can afford spice. It's a great tale. Great tale.
I mean, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mango says Dune does take a lot from Islamic and Nordic mythology, not just the film, but the books too.
Yeah, well, all mythology,
Yeah.
actually. Christian stuff, a lot of Christian stuff in it. Western stuff. You know, the Harkonnens are basically, if you go back into Dune lore, the Harkonnens are Eastern Europeans. They're like a mixture of the Finns and the Russians. Caladan and House Atreides, I guess, is the UK, descendants of the UK probably. There's a bunch of other stuff that exists over time, you know. Ix, which is Planet Nine, or Nine, and then that civilization doesn't even live on Planet Nine. Wherever they go, they call it Nine, One X, and they just pronounce that Ix. There's all kinds of weird shit in this story, you know. For me, you know, better than The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. It's similar scope, but better, I think. It's just, this is the first time it's been done right on film or, you know, in video. And, you know, there's a lot of potential here. If you do this right, you could replace Star Wars easily and Lord of the Rings if you get Dune right.
I mean, I was just going to say that it just goes to show that if you know what you're doing from a filmmaking standpoint, you can take something as epic and complicated as Dune and put it into a movie that, even if you haven't read the book, I mean, it's hard for me to say, but I kind of feel like even if you haven't read the book, I don't think you'd find it all that hard to follow.
Yeah.
Not really, as long as you're kind of paying attention to what's going on. But, you know, I'd say that about every movie. You can't just, like, let it wash over you and expect to know what's going on. But if you pay attention, pretty much everything is in there, and it doesn't need a lot of exposition. It doesn't need a lot of, because everything is kind of shown, and you just kind of make inferences from that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that, you know, I'm comparing it and contrasting it, like I said, to David Lynch's one, where, even though, like I said, I hate to call it that, but, you know, where everything had to be exposition, which I don't think he even wanted. I think the studios were just like, well, no one's going to know what the fuck is going on because there's just, like, too much stuff and it's too complicated. So we have to put this narrative, like, explaining all this stuff. But this movie shows you don't need that. Yeah. Literally all that it had, I think for a second, like, it said what year it was, like 10,000 whatever, and then
10,191.
Yeah, and then, like, whatever, and then whenever it goes to another world, like, you know, when it goes to, like, Giddy Prime and stuff like that, it put it on there, but that's it. That's like the only thing that it had. Yeah, and other than that, it just let the audience, you know, pay attention and see what was going on, and I did not find it hard to follow at all.
Yeah, it said 10,191, but that's not AD. If you actually go through Dune lore, that's about 20,000 years from right now, because they changed the calendar several times. But 10,191, that was the year. It's quite cool, you know. And I do like, another thing that I really liked about Dune, and I like that they continued with this theme with the new movies, the importance of religion to mankind and things like mankind. Because in this tale, humanity is old enough and now has the technology enough through genetic engineering to be kind of like other than humans. There's transhumanism going on. And they all kind of have their own religions. Some of them are based on religions we would know. Some of it is a merger between Islam and Christianity, merge into one, mixed with things that happened in the Butlerian Jihad, which haven't happened yet. So it's kind of like you took more, kind of like merging Christianity with Islam and then putting a Mormon spin on it or something like that. You know, that is going on. Mixed with witches, like the Bene Gesserit. And then you have, I guess, what are non-theistic religions going on. Between the Mentats, they kind of have their own religions. But they're not about God. They're more about logic and mental acuity. And then they show, in this one, they'll show that even the Sardaukar, which were... Sardaukar were from Salacious Secundus, and it was a prison planet. And they would send prisoners there. The environment would kill them. But then the strongest of them were trained as soldiers, and then they fought each other until only the very tops of top quality would survive, and those would be freed kinda as mercenaries of the emperor. And they showed them worshiping their religion and human sacrifice going on. It looked like human sacrifice to me. Wasn't that what's going on? They had them upside down. Were cutting their throats and draining blood out of them, and they had like their version of a damn pope, and I like that they continued with that because that's close, real. If you look at human history, that one of the driving force between all humanity is some kind of a religion, be it deistic or non-theistic. You know, in other words, it's either some kind of a, like Buddhism. You know, it doesn't not really so much about a god, and then there's philosophies and fake science like Scientology, and people believe in something. That's what binds them together, especially in large groups, and that's how you motivate them. They have to have some kind of philosophy or religion to drive them, and they got it in this movie, man, because I think it's a very human element. Humans are like that, and they did get into the transhuman element. Baron Harkonnen had some kind of a pet. It looks like a giant black widow spider until you look real close at it, and it's a human that's been modified to look like a spider with little hands and shit. It was creepy.
Yeah, and it was cool because they just kind of showed it for a minute and they didn't really comment on it all that much. You know what I mean? They
fed it and it was eaten out of a bowl. It's the size of a person, but it's got 8 arms. It didn't have any legs, just arms, and it was walking on its hands. And that Bene Gesserit goes, "Get out of here! Get out!" And he goes, "Oh, it doesn't understand your language." And then it left. She used the voice on it, and it left. And he goes, "See, it understands." Fucking, she didn't want that thing around.
I heard that they're making, I don't know if they've done it yet, but I heard they're making a prequel series, which is all about the Bene Gesserit, which is called, I think it's just called Dune, the Sisterhood. Yeah. I think they're doing that for HBO Max.
That'd be good if it's good.
So they are making, so they are doing like an extended universe stuff, which is kind of like par for the course nowadays.
It's a lot of potential, but man, it's got to pass the test. It has to stay within Frank Herbert's fucking concept of, you know what I mean? And there is also some really good fanfic. You know, some books came out in recent years that evidently, I've never read them, but according to like the Dune fans, they love it. You know, the same thing happened with Star Trek. Anybody who loves Star Trek and can write a good Star Trek story.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing that too, but it has to fit within that motif. And but no, the transhuman thing, that was fucking great because they were making people look like anything that they wanted, and kind of a brutal monarchies and stuff fighting each other, and yeah.
I mean, I think he did a great job. This was, I mean, I was expecting it to be good because, like I said, I loved Blade Runner 2049 and I loved Arrival. So I was like, well, you know, and after hearing what a big fan he was of Dune as a, you know, as a book, and being like, you know, I've always wanted to do this, and he was really excited that because they've been bouncing the rights for this around since like fucking 1996, right? Yeah. And like I said, I hate to shit on like David Lynch's one because there are a lot of things I like about David Lynch's adaptation. It was just, I think that he was given an impossible task. I mean, visually that looks spectacular, you know, and it has all the elements there. It's just like you said, it just got like chopped up. The studio didn't really trust him to do what he wanted to do. They couldn't make it as long as they wanted. It was all this other kind of stuff. I mean, when Alejandro Jodorowsky was going to make it, he was going to make the shit like 14 hours long, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's like, you do kind of need more than one movie like this game. And this movie is, it being 2 hours, I think it's 2 hours and 35 minutes, right? And then they're going to do the second part. The second part has been greenlit, but it's going to be like 2 years before it's out. I think it's coming out October 2023 is when it's supposed to come out. So it has actually been greenlit. And this, I just looked on the Wikipedia page, and they said as of 2 days ago, it's almost made twice its budget back.
Okay.
Which is good. So it's, because to break even, it would have to make 300 million, and I think it's made 225 at this point. So, and they're already going to do a part 2. Like that's already been greenlit.
At the pace that the movie is going, I think you could tell this in one more movie. I don't think it needs 3. But they probably will go for 3. How much you want to bet?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
think 2 would do it.
I mean, this pretty much encompassed more or less like the first half of the book. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
There's a bunch of stuff that could happen after, like in the Dune Messiah period too, or you could just make a totally original prequels. You know, you could do something happening in the Butlerian Jihad. You could do all kinds of stuff with it. There's a lot of potential. But Khan and I think it was Louis were saying that Star Wars was kind of a ripoff of Dune. I think Star Wars, according to Lucas, Star Wars is more a rip-off of Flash Gordon.
Yeah, he was more into like the
yeah.
old serials,
Yeah.
like from the early 20th century, early days of film.
Yeah. But Khan says this. He said that this is an opportunity to have something kind of like Star Wars and still keep it kind of R-rated. Says, yeah, that is true.
Yeah, because this is more like, and I will say, I mean, Dune is obviously more, Star Wars is kind of like for everybody. It's kind of like, you know, crowd pleasing. Everybody can get into it, even if they're not into sci-fi. I would argue that to be into Dune, you kind of have to be into sci-fi.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of more, I don't know if it's necessarily, it's not hard sci-fi, but I don't know. It's just, it's more of like a complicated, more of an adult type story, and it's kind of harder to get into for general audiences, I guess.
The interesting thing about Dune is that in the Dune universe, mankind is, in some cases, has kind of evolved through natural and unnatural means, evolved into other species, or slightly different species. But they haven't seen any extraterrestrials. There's no aliens. They haven't found any. They found some ruins, but they don't know. When they found them, they didn't know if they were some kind of ancient human habitat that was forgotten, or if they were extraterrestrial. Wasn't any proof, but they haven't found any aliens, which that's really unique in science fiction. Science fiction usually has aliens in it.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the fun of doing science fiction. It's like we want to,
Not Dune. They found alien life, but not like plants and shit, and animals, like the worms, But no alien intelligent beings or technology.
Yeah, because everything that's on all the planets, there's animals and stuff, but they would look like animals that would have evolved on those planets. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No alien civilizations.
Word 789 is asking why. Let me see. Where was that? Why did the Emperor give House Atreides Arrakis just to end up attacking them anyway? Well, that was the plan.
That was the point.
And I'm pretty sure they said that in the movie.
They did.
Later on, they discovered they're like, the Emperor basically set us up because he knew that by installing them on Arrakis, that the other guys would.
Yeah. What they said, pretty much just right at the top, is that the Harkonnens got so rich that they were starting to threaten the Emperor. So he took the Chom agreement, which is with the Spicing Guild. They took that away from the Harkonnens, all right, and gave it to the Atreides. They told the Harkonnens that they did it because they wanted them to annihilate the Atreides, okay, because the Atreides were getting too powerful, too popular in the Landsraad. In other words, they were becoming politically powerful and they were becoming a threat. The Emperor, his true motive, what he said was he was trying to weaken and destroy both the Harkonnens and the Atreides because they were both a threat to him.
Yeah.
Because the Harkonnens had to spend all that money to reinvade into Dune.
And the Baron even says that at one point when he's coming out of the tub, like after being healed.
Got to recoup all that loss.
Yeah, he's like, how much money I spent, like on the battle,
Right. Now, what the Emperor told him is that it was kind of like a contract job. I want you to kill the Atreides for me. You know what I mean? But Baron Harkonnen knew that the true reason why the Emperor did it was to weaken House Harkonnen and get rid of the Atreides, because House Harkonnen is planning to not only get rid of the Atreides because they didn't like the Atreides, that they had a grudge that went back generations. House Harkonnen was also going to overthrow House Carino, who was the Emperor. So now Vladimir Harkonnen, he was a baron. He was part of the Landsraad, which the Landsraad was kind of like their version of like the council of all the noble houses. It's kind of like their version of the Senate. He had to respect all these institutions like the Bene Gesserit, the Chom contracts, the Spicing Guilds, and the throne of the Imperium. He had to respect that. So he couldn't openly attack the Emperor, but he was going to. Because they had been... The House Harkonnen, its military and its royal family had a long tradition of inter-competition and assassination and trickery to gain power. That was the approved means of gaining authority. That was gaining authority by natural means. So, by extension, as far as a Harkonnen would consider that if you could murder the Emperor and take his place, that's your job.
Yeah,
that's
legit.
your gold. That would mean that you're better than that person. So it's your right to take what you can get. And House Caladan and the Atreides weren't like that. They had a blood feud that went way back, and so that fight was going to happen. I guess you could say Atreides were kind of the generic good guys, and the Harkonnens were the generic bad guys. They're just two different views on how shit was supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Nothing. I was just.
Oh yeah. But no, it was all a plot. It's court intrigue. That's why the Emperor did it. Try to get rid of Atreides and the fucking Harkonnens.
Yeah, he was like kind of essentially kind of setting them against each other because he knew that that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then while kind of also maintaining plausible deniability a little bit, like keeping his hands out of it.
Duke Leto knew it was trap.
Yeah.
Duke Leto knew it was trap. Remember, Paul's like, "Why are we doing it?" He says, "Well, I have to accept. I have to accept the deal because that's the duty of a duke." So it's not like you could tell the Emperor to fuck off. No, I don't want.
Yeah, it was all about like everything is bound up in like honor and tradition and stuff like that. So it's like if they ask you to do it, you kind of have to do it. You don't really have much of a choice.
Yeah, I mean, early on, when Leto's trying to make some money to defend himself when he's there, and the fucking equipment's all been sabotaged and fucking, you know what I mean? And the Emperor's plotting against him, and it was a plot to get rid of the Atreides from the very beginning, and they knew it. They do it.
Yeah, they did kind of knew, but they were kind of like had them. They were kind of by the short and curlies. It's like they're not. They didn't really have a lot of choice.
There's no choice. They had to go.
They didn't really have a lot of choice in the matter.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that. But yeah, it's good because, like I said, I know the outline of the story because I read the book, but it was a long time ago, so I kind of remember a lot of the stuff from it, but. All of the intricacies and stuff I probably like forgot about, but I honestly did not have any problem at all like following the movie, even though it doesn't have like a bunch of exposition dumps or anything like that. I thought it was like
that question?
Somebody word 789.
Okay, yeah. See, that's a sign that you didn't watch the first movie, because the old David Lynch version in Act 1, the first thing they tell you is that fucking the Guild is going to investigate the damn Emperor because they have foreseen using their mental powers that the Emperor was plotting against fucking House Atreides and going to use
that was another thing too, and I think they brought this up at some point too. Is that I think it was when they were going to dump Paul and his mom into the desert.
Yeah,
and they were like, somebody was like, well, why don't you just like cut their throats? And they're like, well, because they can't because there's like a lot of motherfuckers that can like read people's minds.
Yep, and they got things called truth sayers. It's a Bene Gesserit witch that if she gets around you, she can fucking use suggestion and power of the mind to get you to tell the truth.
Yeah,
and you see they had. Baron Harkonnen, the Bene Gesserit told Baron Harkonnen that you can't kill Jessica or Paul because they're part of the Bene Gesserit. You have to let them go into
their
exile.
protection. Yeah, you'll be fucked.
Yeah, they have to go into exile. And Harkonnen says, "Oh yeah, I would never go against the Bene Gesserit. I won't have anything to do with their death." So he made sure that the desert would kill them.
Yeah,
and that was
it wasn't us.
Yeah, it wasn't us. The desert did it. So that was the plausible deniability. Because they could get in there and read your mind, or they can make you say the truth. And in this version, they knew about the voice, which is the power of suggestion. It's kind of like the Jedi mind trick, but they just used it through techniques using the voice. How to convince somebody using psychic powers. The Harkonnens that were taking them out to dump them off into the desert, so they die out in the desert. One of them was deaf, which made him resistant to the fucking to their powers of suggestion. It didn't work though. You just got to see how that goes down. And it was funny is the way the guy opened his mouth and started talking, that Harkonnen soldier, I have a cousin who's deaf. That's the way a deaf person sounds. The motherfucker, that dude was deaf. I could tell.
Well, I would hope. Voice. I mean, I kind of feel like nowadays they should probably get someone that actually is hearing impaired to play a part of somebody that's hearing impaired. I mean, it's not like there's not a huge pool of talented actors with disabilities that you can choose from.
You would think, wait a minute, hold on, you got a Harkonnen Special Forces guy who's deaf? Well, deafness in that world would have been a special ability because it made you resistant to Bene Gesserit technology. So you would be like a valuable asset. And they were doing shit like that. Mental powers and it's like that in the book, you know. Fucking yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Being deaf would be an advantage in certain circumstances. So you'd want some soldiers that were like that.
Yeah, because they would be immune to certain types of attacks.
Well, imagine if you're fighting a whole bunch of damn Medusas, and if you saw them, you'd turn to stone. Well, that wouldn't affect a dude who's
so why
blind.
they send some blind motherfuckers
send some
to
blind
fight
dudes with knives and fucking kill them. Right?
Did they ever think of that back in the great days?
That's how you do it.
I mean, Perseus did look at her in the mirror because it's the reflection.
Send some blind dudes down
but...
there, and that'd be the end of that.
They'd be like, I can't see the bitch.
Well, you could probably, if you had several blind dudes, you could train them to fight one another.
Yeah, they could use like echolocation type situation.
Yeah, they could get good at it.
Because I have heard that people that have been blind their whole life can do like some kind of echolocation.
Well, just watch the fucking series Zatoichi.
Yeah,
Zatoichi Blind Swordsman. Hell yeah. Doesn't matter if it's dark or not, so you attack during the darkness. When other people can't see, it doesn't matter to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have an advantage.
Problem is the blind person doesn't know when it's dark. Is it dark? Yeah, it's dark. Okay.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, basically, I was not disappointed at all. I thought this was like, I knew it was going to be epic and amazing and all that other kind of stuff. But yeah, I think he did a really, really good job. Gonna say, I'd
like to see it again.
It's beautiful to look at. The sound design is incredible. The score is incredible. Just everything about it. It's just like I said, it just like really sucked me in, and I was just kind of like, I was sitting there with my little box of M&Ms, just like watching the shit. And I noticed there wasn't a shit ton of people in the theater. We were in the Dolby one, so it was like the big one with the comfy seats. And we went at like 4:00 in the afternoon or 4:30. It's like it wasn't packed, but there was a good amount of people in there, and I'm pretty sure through that whole 2.5 hour movie, it was deathly silent. I didn't hear a single person cough or rattle anything or talk or nothing.
789 says, yeah, they caught them all while they were asleep and attacked it. Yeah, you're missing a lot of. You had to read the book and you had to pay attention. The trader that they had, what was his name? The doctor,
oh shit! I thought of it and then it just went flitting right out of my head.
If you paid attention, he drugged the entire royal family.
Yeah.
And then he assassinated their bodyguards using those darts, those poison. And then he lowered the shield wall. And the
so they had a mole.
Came in. Yeah. And that's how the attack initiated. Now, just the royal family was asleep because they had been drugged.
Yeah, he drugged them.
And Paul was drugged too. And then the soldiers fought out there, but they got annihilated by those fucking it was a mixture of Harkonnen troops, and then the Sadr car came in. They kind of had like their version of paratroopers. They'd come down on anti-gravity things and land down behind them. I think another thing that confuses people, that in Dune there's no guns. Guns don't work in Dune because they all have those shields, and those personal shields, anything fast moving gets stopped by those shields. So the only way to get through those shields is with things like blades, but you have to go slow through it. Once it hits, you got to like force it slowly. You fight against it, and slashes will work. And then they had another kind of like a dart gun that would hit, and once it hit the shield, it would start spinning and slow down and try to force its way through that electromagnetic shield and then go in. It was poisonous. So it was a lot of hand-to-hand stuff and darts and shit. Now, they did have some rays. Like, remember when the ornithopter was running and a damn ray comes down and it's trying to catch up with it and it's fucking annihilating the damn...
Yeah, it was like laser type things, yeah.
In Dune, that ray gun could not hit anything with a shield. If it hit that shield, it would destroy not only that... All of that... not only would destroy the enemy, it would destroy you. Because the energy from that shield would be sucked up inside that ray and go into your weapon and explode like a bomb. So you had to be careful what you shot with any of these ray guns or a laser or whatever, because it would kill you. So they were shooting at that ornithopter because it evidently wasn't shielded. Anything shielded, it would fucking blow you up. And you had to be careful with them. So no ray guns, no guns.
Yeah, which, like I said, I think that kind of makes things more like exciting, and you got to do more like hand-to-hand combat.
Well, you could have machine guns and shit, just that they just bounce off those guys.
Yeah.
You know, if you
so
had
it's
shields.
like not much point.
It wasn't worth it, right?
Yeah. But yeah, so everything, and I liked it because everything, it was almost kind of like watching an old samurai movie. Everything has to be done like with some like poison and you know, shit, like sneaky shit.
Yeah. They had guided missiles, they had bombs, they had nuclear warheads, they had all that, but nuclear weaponry was banned, and there were still some laying around, but they were kind of like the Landsrat and the Emperor had decided you weren't supposed to have those, so to have them was like contraband. And if you used them, you had to do it where the Emperor knew and would look the other way.
Yeah.
If you used those and you didn't get approval by the Emperor, you were fucked because they'd kill you. They'd wipe out your whole family. So in the original Dune book, they use, and in this story, eventually they will use nuclear weapons. But the Emperor has kind of like on the sly allowed them to do it. Actually, I think it already happened.
Well, that attack, they did actually like blow a bunch of shit up.
Yeah. They were used to small nuclear weapons to fuck up the shield wall, I believe.
Yeah, that was like a pretty epic scene too.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say too. I almost forgot to say this. Nice to see Javier Bardem in this. He wasn't in it a lot. He's probably gonna be more in it in the second one. But yeah, it's always cool to see. I love that guy. So it's always like cool to see him. It's just, you know, everybody that was cast in this was great. And the woman that played Paul Atreides' mom, she's you know, Lady Jessica. She was just in Dr. Sleep, wasn't she? She was Rose the Hat. Because remember, I told you that afterward, and you were like, "Oh yeah, the whole movie." I was wondering, where have I seen that woman before? Yeah, she was in Dr. Sleep. But yeah, so actually, I'm kind of now we have to wait 2 years to see the second part.
Yeah.
But
now they're talking about the difference between the aesthetics of this one and the original Lynch one. I like the aesthetics in both.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing, but
yeah. Now there's a really good game. I have it's called Dune Emperor. It's an old game, kind of like I think it's called Command and Conquer. It's like that. I have a fucking old computer that I use just for that game. Every now and then I'll set that fucking PC up and run it. I can't get it to run anything else. It's old.
It's really old.
It's from late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a really good soundtrack and.
Well, it's got clips
graphics.
From the David Lynch movie, like, or it's like cutscenes.
Cutscenes. It's in that same motif.
Yeah.
It's not from the movie though. It's a different story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have some of the same actors, like.
Kind of. Michael Dorn's in it.
Yeah.
He plays Duke Leto, and they have the Harkonnens in it, and they have the House of Ordos and shit, and you're just have to mine spice and fucking build shit and fucking make armies and fight each other using carry-alls, and it's got all that. But there's supposed to be a way where you can get that to work in a modern computer, but I'm not that computer savvy. There's a program I think that you can download into a modern computer to run those old video games.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do everything nowadays. Yeah. But yeah, so it's just funny that you have that one old computer. That's the only thing it does. That's the only thing it does is play Dune Emperor.
I was gonna dismantle that PC and put it in a video arcade cabinet, and Jenny was gonna make the graphics.
The graphics
and
for
put
the
it on
cabinet,
side of
yeah.
the thing and make a lighted fucking time. I might still do it, but the thing is about that game, you have to have a mouse.
Yeah.
Without a mouse, that game is not fun. So you can't run it with a trackball or a joystick. Just kind of like Missile Command. You can't play Missile Command without a trackball. If it doesn't have a trackball, fuck it. You gotta have a trackball.
Yeah.
Well, that Dune game without a mouse, it's, you know. So you have to somehow, in a clean way, incorporate a mouse into a arcade cabinet.
Which I'm not really sure how you would do that.
You just have to have a pad there.
I
And
guess.
have that mouse on a wire.
I guess it would work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you have to have access to your keyboard, so you have to have a keyboard sitting there too. Because there's
So it's like, you know what?
Commands.
Let's might as well leave it on the,
yeah.
the fucking computer.
Yeah.
You're gonna do that.
It'd be cool to have a lit kiosk on the top of it.
You could just
and
put the
everything.
monitor inside of like a little miniature cabinet.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
You put the monitor inside a miniature cabinet. It would be a small cabinet.
Yeah.
You know.
We'll have to do
Not
that
a
one of these
full-size
days.
cabinet.
Yeah, sometimes he'd sit there for hours and play that game, and it's just like, and the little guys, every time you command your little dudes to do something,
acknowledged.
Yeah, they're just so they always like say something.
Yeah, as soon as you try to like
Worm sign.
move, and it drives a non-player fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So if you can stop all the voices, but I actually got so used to hearing them say acknowledged, you know,
Yeah.
moving out, sir, and shit like that. You know? Yeah, and the Harkonnens fucking say bags, you know, getting ready to kill. And they're fucking overloading the reactors on the damn Devastators. Devastation time! Boom! And it blows up and shit, you know. You're coming with me! Boom! And it blows up and shit, yeah.
It looks like a fun game. But yeah, so if you're just listening to somebody else play it, it's just like a constant stream of little army guys being like, yes, sir, moving out, sir. All this kind of stuff. Like
the only thing I don't like about it is that fucking the AI, and the AI is not that good. It'd be better if you had two people through two different computers, which you can link to them together to fight each other on the same map. That would be a lot more challenging.
Yeah, because you can play. I mean, you can play any of the houses, right?
Yep.
And then so
yeah, you can play any house. And then there's a bunch of sub houses that you can get access to, like House X, fucking the Fremen, fucking.
And you got to build little harvesters. And
factories, harvesters, wind traps would make power, and fucking you need. Just all kinds of stuff, research facilities to get better weapons, fucking airstrips and shit.
Kind of reminds me of a really old game, also probably from the 90s, which I think was called Populous.
Yes.
Where you could, you know what I'm saying? Where you could pick what kind of terrain you wanted.
Yeah.
And then you had to, like, build a civilization on it. You had to, like, build farms and little buildings and shit like that.
But you guys can go on YouTube and go Dune Emperor soundtrack. And they got the soundtrack to all the houses and the different, and when you're playing that game, you hear the music, and it's pretty cool. Anything that fucking Harkonnen related, if you're playing Harkonnen, all you hear is straight power metal through the whole fucking thing.
Because of course.
Yeah, it's fucking power metal. And fucking, the titles of the songs are fucking badass, you know what I mean? Like fucking just weird shit like Death Before Dishonor and fucking, No Mercy for the Weak or whatever, that kind of shit, crush your enemies, shit like that, And then like House Ordos and fucking House Atreides, you all have different theme music, and Hordos is kind of like, mellow and brave and fucking trumpets and shit, and Ordos is fucking, they're a bunch of fucking they're basically a big old fucking merchant cartel. Their shit's all fucking kind of like techno industrial. That's weird because fucking the one that's in charge of them is a group hive mind between like 5 people who've been merged together. Their brains have been merged together, and they speak through a gola. In other words, a zombie. And when it talks, it's the voices of like 5 people coming out of it, but then it goes through a translator that's mechanical, and it's real fucking creepy. And what's it called? The something or other of tricks. The fucking what? It's basically the CEO that runs the corporation. It's fucking creepy, and it's telling you to do things, giving you your mission or your orders for your mission, which a lot of the shit's illegal. Like use poison gas inside the Highliner before we arrive. Don't let the
oh, good idea.
Yeah, don't let the because the same guild Highliner is taking both sides of the fucking war to fucking Dune to fight each other. And you're like, and you're not allowed to attack each other inside the Highliner, but if you play one of the bad guys, they're like, oh, by the way, fuck the guild and the Lance.
Well, that's why
we're gonna kill them inside the Highliner on the way there.
Because they do
like,
bad
wait,
stuff.
Before we get there, like, yeah.
That's kind of the whole definition of it.
Right, yeah. Breaking rules.
Yeah. Breaking the law. Yeah. But yeah. So basically, Dune was awesome.
Yes.
And I can't wait until the second part. This weekend. Also this weekend, One Night in Soho and Antlers both start this weekend. I'm pretty sure. So, yay! So we'll have some movies we'll have to talk about.
They're still waiting on the interview with the vampire review. I thought we did that.
Didn't we? We did an interview with the vampire. A long time. Well, it wasn't a long time ago. It was maybe like a year or 2 ago.
I remember the name of that thing was called the Executrix.
Oh, okay.
The Executrix was fucking was the one that was fucking telling you to do all that shit. And if you'd fail, they would remove your head and keep it alive.
Word 789 said, what happened to TV and technology in the world of Dune? Yeah, Tom already explained that, but basically what it is that...
No computers.
This is like way in the future, and computers are outlawed because... Or anything like that is outlawed because they kind of felt like technology caused...
It was called the Butlerian Jihad.
Yeah, like all this destruction and stuff.
And what it was is basically it was a situation kind of like big tech had happened. They created some AI robots or AI supercomputers, and people started to manipulate AI and robots to enslave mankind.
Yeah, so like a Skynet type situation.
Right.
Sort
of. But men were behind it.
Yeah.
And then some of the AI was even better than men. So they were big. They were almost kind of like partners in it. So some of these computers were, surpassed human intellect, and they started to take over. If you go to fucking Dune, epilogue, and it'll be from the television edition of that, and there's like a little animated featurette that explains why the Dune universe went the way that it went. AI almost took over. It made mankind basically weak slaves, and it became like a high-tech nanny state. You weren't allowed to do anything. They constantly kept you imprisoned for your own safety. People started to atrophy. Human abilities started to atrophy. People got fat, stupid, and weak. A revolt happened, and they were eventually overthrown. But it actually took. In the little featurette, they make it seem like it happened on one planet. It happened in a whole system of planets. There's a bunch of them. A bunch of planets were involved in it. And they eventually got rid of AI. And they made a new religion. This is over a period of like 1,000 years, I believe. They basically rewrote holy books and made new laws inside the Landsrod to ban any machine that was made in the image of the mind of man. So no AI, no computers. So everything was mechanical or analog.
Yeah, you could still have analog or mechanical things. Yeah. You just couldn't have any kind of like artificial intelligence.
No artificial intelligence. Yeah. So, and then they opened up new schools, the spacing guilds and the Bene Gesserit and all that, and they were using and the Mentats. They used human ability and drugs to expand human ability and genetic engineering and stuff. Some people weren't totally human in some ways. Like, for instance, there's one planet that because of its religion, they tried to get away from temptation, and one of the temptations was sex. So they eliminated basically sex. And they did this by getting rid of women. They were only men. What served as a woman was just a torso that was genetically engineered that had a womb in it. And they artificially inseminated those. And men came out of it. That's some spooky shit.
It's like a whole MGTOW planet.
Like a MGTOW planet. Yeah. So, and they were kind of, and then the men, and so that was kind of a weird fucking thing. Women were totally banned. That's weird. But, I don't think there's any full stories written about it in the Dune universe. I think it's just mentioned. It's just that planet was mentioned.
Yeah, it's just kind of like background.
Yeah. So you're not dealing with the same kind of fucking world as, like, say, Star Wars. Weirder.
Yeah. But like I said, a lot more interesting, a lot more unique, I guess.
Yeah.
In that regard. All right, you done?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some other videos I got to do. And tonight, we're going back to the theater because tonight is Riff Tracks Live. Mm-hmm. They're doing the Halloween special tonight. I think they're doing Amityville 4. So we haven't been to one of those in a while, so I'm kind of excited. I think tonight at 8 we're going to go see Riff Tracks Live. But yeah, so I guess tomorrow's Wednesday. So we're going to be doing the regular show tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. And since it's sort of the pre-Halloween show, and we're gonna do like two topics because they were the ones that were the top of the poll. But it's like two kind of fun paranormal type shit, so it should be entertaining. But yeah, we'll see you guys again tomorrow, and thanks for dropping by. Bye.